Hi there, and welcome to another episode of Inspiring Careers. My name is Dan Johnston, and I have my guest today with me. His name is James Battisti, and he has recently won the Gold Award for the Pharma Times International Clinical Trial Administrator of the Year. That makes him the best in the world. Good afternoon, James. How are you doing?
Good afternoon. I'm very well, thank you, Dan. How are you?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you so much for coming on and being a guest on my show. James, just introduce yourself to everyone. Just explain a bit about what you do, and then we'll have a bit of a chat from there.
Okay, yeah, my name's James. I work in Spain, in Madrid, for PRA Health Sciences, a contract research organization in the pharmaceutical sector. Like you said, recently I've come to pass with you after winning the gold at the Pharma Times Award, which is basically an event which takes about 5 or 6 different roles within the pharmaceutical research sector and tests them on a variety of aspects that they do in their normal daily job. So to start off with, we needed to know all the ICH GCP, which are the general clinical guidelines. It's basically an elimination test to make sure you know your onions. You have to get a multiple choice test. And then once you've passed that round and they've eliminated a certain amount of people who maybe aren't suitable for the competition, we had to submit an essay on 2 aspects of our role and how we've gained success and how we use the tools and software available to us to make the best of our role. And then the final stage was to go ahead with the presentation in person. So they gave us we went to Cambridge, all of the finalists. I think there were 10 of us in total. Okay. And then from there, we would be given a task assigned to us. So we would have a scenario in my category. So we get given that 45 minutes to prepare our search, and then we were led into a room with 3 industry leaders, and we would present our task. Or presentation, a 10-minute presentation, and then get asked a series of questions both on the presentation and just on about myself in general as well.
Okay, so yeah, again, I was talking to one of the MSL finalists. It sounds like quite a high-pressure situation. When you're doing these tasks, are you in a room with everyone all at once, or do you get your own private space? Is it in front of a big crowd? How does that kind of work?
No, they have to make the use of the space, I guess. So there's about 3 or 4 of us in the preparation room at once, all in different categories, or maybe there's one person with my category who's coming on next because I was the first one in the morning. Yep. So there's just a few of us. We're all in our own world, in our own box, though. Got our piece of paper and our laptops out, just working away, and because we've got to make the most of the time, I guess. And I think we had half an hour, 40 minutes, I can't remember exactly, to prepare. So you just ignore everyone around you, really, and just get in the zone.
Fantastic. And you came up with the gold award winning presentation on the day as well. Just out of interest, going back to your nomination, how did that come about? Did you say your line manager had put you forward? Is it something that gets kind of voted throughout your company? How did that come about?
I mean, my company's really good for that, and they really push these aspects, which I guess makes sense for them as well, because it's great marketing if they can put that we have so many winners, and my company was actually awarded the general award, the best CRO. Fantastic. So they really push for us to, well, obviously they don't force you to or anything, but they say, oh, it'd be great, this is the opportunity, we've got this, they'll pay for all your transport and let you go to London for the event, which is very expensive, stay there, and go to Cambridge for the finals as well, which is all right if you're based in Reading, but coming from Madrid, it costs a lot more. We had people coming from Singapore, from South Korea, so there must have been a great expense to the company. And I actually did this competition last year as well.
Okay, cool.
So something I already knew about, where I got the silver the year before. So this year left me coming back trying to get the gold this time.
So wow, yes, you really you already kind of dominated the international space for your role 1 year, -1 position in winning silver, and then you came back next year for the gold. That's absolutely fantastic. And how long have you been doing your role for?
By the time I'd done the actual finals, I think I'd been doing it for just over 2 years, so not too long. So it's probably a year the first time I'd done it, and then 2 years, but that's the second time I'd done it. Maybe 2.5, coming up to 2.5 years.
Fantastic. That's brilliant achievement there, James. Really well done on that. So, as a clinical trial administrator, what would you say makes you most passionate about this role? Why does this role mean so much to you?
I just really like the variety that you get in it. There's no day was the same. No, or you're dealing with people from all around the world. You never have that routine task where you come in, you punch some numbers into some boxes. You walk in and someone will give you a new task today and say, okay, this is happening today, and we need your help with it. And also, as you're in such a global position, you have the opportunity to make it what you want. If you want to make it, okay, I need to do this here, this time at this day, then that's what you can do if you're really setting that. But if you think, oh, I really want to see this an opportunity to develop, you have a big, huge project teams which you can always learn off anyone, and they're very busy people. So if they can train you to do something that they would normally do, they're more than delighted to delegate that task to you. So you help them, and then they help you get more experience, which is great.
Because you love being a part of that team. It sounds like a really team-based role.
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, you have two different teams really as well, because you have your team of the people who do the same role in your office. Like in Madrid, we had 8 or 9, and so you always have each other's back when someone goes on holiday. You can always cover everyone. So you need some advice on how to do this, because all in different types of projects from different pharmaceutical companies from around the world for different diseases. So you all have a different skill set. And then you also have your team actually within the project, so you all have your own defined roles, but you need to bounce off each other really to support each other, especially in the project management side of it. They really come to depend on each other when you have that good dynamic relationship between a project manager and a clinical team manager and a clinical trial administrator. They really help to get them all working on the same page. You can really help save some time, definitely.
Fantastic. So as a clinical trial administrator, what would you say are the toughest problems that you faced, and how do you think those problems could be solved?
I think the toughest part of the role would be having to deal with so many different stakeholders at a time. Like I said, that was one of the positive aspects, but it's also one of the most difficult, because not only do you have all the project managers, the clinical research associates, you have the clinical team managers, you also have the sponsor, you have legal, you have the vendors, all of which you need to be constantly in communication with. So maybe you want something to be done, you can't just send an email and have it said, okay, yeah, go. You have to have approval from maybe 6 or 7 people sometimes, which can take a long time, especially when you're dealing with global projects. So you have someone based in the US, someone based in Australia, someone in Hong Kong, someone in Russia. They're obviously, each one of them, it may take 4 days to do something which could easily be done in 1 day, really. That's often a bit of a struggle, and you really have to try and work out your times, best when to communicate people and how to communicate with people. So if you know you only have 30 minutes of crossover with the United States, you need to make sure that you get them on the phone straight away so you can get it done, that part of it. Whereas if you know you come in the morning and the west coast of Australia are already finished, you may as well know you can get everything done in the meantime while you wait for that thing which is going to take 24 hours realistically to get back to you.
Yeah, that's not easy when you have to work with people in such wide different time zones, but particularly in some of the Australia. I guess that kind of leads me on to my next question is, how do you prepare for a successful day then? You've got all these time frames to manage, people in different countries, your team all over the place. If you were speaking to another clinical trial administrator today in your seat, how would you tell them to prepare for a successful day?
Okay, I'd say it's always, obviously, I think with any job, to start by being punctual. If you make sure you're on time and prepared to start your day when you get in, and you don't have to mess around with anything, with running in late from after a bus and getting a bit stressed, and if you can walk in nice and relaxed after having, or whatever, without going in too much traffic or any of that problem, that always helps. Also to be very organized, so maybe not just in the morning, but maybe the afternoon before you leave the day before. Make sure you know what's coming tomorrow. Obviously you never know, because you're going to have things come in overnight from the other time zones, but as best you can have your day planned out in your head when you leave the office, and then you can forget about it. You don't have to stress when you go home, and you can come in the morning and you know it's all there. And then what I always do when I first come in is spend about 10-20 minutes checking all my important emails, which you can quickly do by sorting them by subject specific things that need to be urgent. And then you can set up your day, making sure you've got the priorities, rather than dealing with each thing as it comes in. When it comes in, and then you can just, even if an email comes in within the next 2 hours, I wouldn't even deal with it. I'd make sure if someone wanted to contact me, I'd have them call me if it's desperately urgent.
Yeah.
And then they know that I'm working through what I already have planned during that time, and I don't have to stress myself and get all mixed up with what you need to do and what needs to be done first. So nothing ever falls through the cracks, essentially.
So you've got to have your preparation game has to be really on point. So it's preparing the night before, perhaps even getting up a little earlier, just to get that last bit of preparation done. But most importantly, prioritizing which communications, which emails you've got to deal with first. You can, again, I say this a lot, but you can apply that. That's such great career advice all round. Just don't let yourself get procrastinating, and really do focus on the preparation. It looks like you'd agree with that, yeah?
Yeah, I definitely would agree with that. I mean, the main point is, I think, not only are you organized and you can deal with things in a structured manner, but I think when you do have things come in urgently, you don't get stressed about them. You don't go, oh no, how do I deal with this? Because you're so in control and you know what everything comes up. You know how to deal with it when it comes in. I think when you have a bit of composure and you're relaxed, you then tend to take care of your tasks in a lot more structured manner and a lot more efficient way, really, and you don't waste as much time.
Yeah, that's it really. It's being able to do your work, and when you're composed, when you're calm, when things feel like they can sort of move, time can slow down a bit. That's when you can produce much better work. I've got to ask, what's the best piece of career advice you've received? Then you've given out some great little examples of the successful things that you do that set you apart. But what's the best advice that you've received so far?
I'd say about last year, I was getting quite excited about, especially after I'd won the Silver Award in the Pharma Times. I was quite excited for my career progression. But then I got some advice saying, if you just keep your head down and you always say yes as a first option. So if someone says, can you do this? Can you help with this? If you just always have that attitude of saying yes, even if you think, oh, I can't do that, I don't know how to, or I don't have time to, you can always find a way to do it. So I think if you just keep yourself always taking on as many new responsibilities, especially when you're new to an industry, maybe if you're 20 years down, you're in a better position to say, okay, I don't need to take that on. But the more experience you can get in the short amount of time, then everything else, all the other positive aspects will follow later. They will just become naturally. Any promotions, any money raises, any new exciting trips or whatever will come in the benefits. They will always come in the long term if you not even make a sacrifice, if you just have a positive attitude in the short term.
Yeah, that's brilliant. And I think that actually, when you see these kind of quotes online, they're quite popular at the moment, seeing memes with quotes and just like in Google Pictures and all the rest of it. One of the popular ones that goes around that you see pop up on Facebook and whatnot is the Richard Branson quote, isn't it? It's the if you don't know how to do something, say yes and work out how to do it later. Basically, just don't turn down opportunities. Exactly. No, that's absolutely perfect. So what do you see as the number one thing holding other people back who do your job from becoming successful?
I'm not sure if I can talk for everyone, but I think this is just a general, obviously, because I've only had a couple of years in the industry myself. But I think in talking general about people working for multinational companies in office roles, something that I notice a lot is a strong reticence for change. I mean, a lot of the time you hear people complaining and moaning when something gets changed in a big organization, which affects them slightly. Maybe they have to learn a new operating system, or they have to change the way they have to do their current job. But I think there's a very closed-minded attitude that, oh, it's affecting me in this slightly negative way, not really realizing that these decisions are often made for a reason by people with lots of experience and have gone through a big process to make these big sweeping changes in a company. So rather than embracing these changes and thinking, okay, this is going to be a positive thing, I could personally learn something new and this will be good for the company, they think, oh, I've got to go through this. And also another thing I've noticed quite a fair bit, not necessarily in my role, but in quite a lot of roles, is quite a lot of self-importance people give to their position, as in they say, oh, if I can't delegate this to someone else, I need to take this home, I need to work 24 hours a day to make sure that, rather than saying, no, I need to stop my day at when I should stop it, and then let someone else take the responsibility and help me out, and then it will work both ways. When they have to finish their day, you can help them out with you starting your day as well. So I think this idea that, oh, if I don't do it, no one will, I think that's a big misnomer in the corporate world, if I'm honest.
Yeah, that's two great bits of advice there. So the first one you mentioned, not being able to adapt. It sounds like basically what you're saying is that people just being unable to adapt to new challenges, adapt to change, adapt to a new environment, adapt to a new structure, whatever that may be. Yeah, it's a very big one. I used to teach a lot about job search and things like that, and the way it's done now with LinkedIn profiles, even with trying to get your name out in the industry, in the career space, with blogging and all the rest of it, it's all about adapting to a completely new way. And I loved your second point as well, not being afraid to ask for help. Do you get that? Do you see that one a lot around the workplace then? Do you see a lot of people just, I don't know whether it's a fear thing or whether it's a pride thing, but just not being able to ask for help with their work?
I wouldn't say it was not being willing to ask for help, but that's definitely not something I've noticed. I think a lot of
Okay.
people will be, especially when they're new, they'll definitely ask for help straight away. I think it's more of the fact that they want to make themselves look more important to their bosses, whatever.
Mm.
Whereas it actually, I think, looks the other way around, as in it looks like they don't know how to efficiently manage their day, that
Yeah.
they have to take their work home, or they don't know how to delegate, or they don't know how to confront their manager if they have too much work on, if it really is too much. I think rather than asking for help.
Okay. And do you think that comes down to being like possibly afraid of the boss, or is that a cultural thing? What do you think that comes down to?
I think it's in certain manners, it's definitely a cultural thing. I think there's a lot of it's a very competitive market there, and anything you can look, even if you aren't better at your job, if you can say that, make it look like you're doing extra hours at home, then it
Mm.
might look as if you're putting that extra mile in when you really is. If the output's the same, it's irrelevant, and it only leads to you having a poorer work-life balance, and then in the long term having poorer results in the actual day, I think. But I would say, and definitely maybe there's a cultural aspect as well. You'd notice the difference in well, from my perspective in Spain than you would in from when I worked in the UK,
Yeah.
or and when from my colleagues when you notice in the US and maybe some Far East Asia, you see a little bit more of um, like you don't switch off from work. You answer emails when you're on holiday, etc.,
Mm, mm.
and you don't know how to separate the two. I think, which is quite important in just maintaining happiness. I think to know
Yeah.
your work life and your private life. Unless it's your own business and they sort of merge together, I think that tends to be a bit different. But if you have a normal employer and you have a contracted amount of hours in the week, then it makes a big difference.
And and you may have the answer to this, you may not. But is there any advice you could give to someone who is in that situation for whatever reason that could make their work day a little bit easier? Is there anything you could directly tell someone who is going through that right now?
I think the first step is to do the job as efficiently as you can during your working hours,
Mm.
rather than, I don't know, being distracted, doing whatever you can to think, oh, it doesn't matter, I've got all day. If you can get all your stuff done in the day, perfect. I think that's generally is a big problem. People
Mm.
don't make the use of their time in the office. Maybe they get distracted on their mobile phones or their coffee breaks or whatever. I don't know. Secondly, I'd say speak to your manager. If you do have too much work, then generally the managers they don't know this unless you say that to them,
Yeah.
and they will have a team of people who they can redivide the work to, or if they can have a justification of lots of people coming to them saying, oh yeah, all my staff are saying they've got too much work, maybe they can go to their higher up and they can look for additional resources to employ someone else.
Mm.
But if they don't know, then they can't do that.
Yeah, I'll admit that's one thing I've always been really grateful for in my career is having managers and having bosses who have always had a very open door policy, whether I've been right or wrong, who will just listen and help. It definitely does help, but equally it's not easy when you're in those positions and for whatever reason you just don't feel like you can. But that's some really great advice. Thanks for that, James. Okay, so what I want you to do now is I want you to have a look into your crystal ball, and I want you to tell me, what do you think the future looks like for the role of a clinical trial administrator, and how do you think it will evolve?
Okay, I'm not really one for predictions generally. I prefer to do them after the event, is what I always say. But I'd say maybe, well, obviously in my industry for a start, it's rapidly growing, not only from a financial point of view. You see most of the big CROs are all turning over or growing in a rapid rate, but also from being in the scientific industry and the research industry, they're always looking to develop the research. So they need to look for ways to make it more efficient, so they can cure more patients, so they can develop more disease and eventually make more money. So in that sense, the more people that are getting involved, and the more the size of the project's growing. Therefore, the more tasks they're not just giving to the clinical trial administrators, but to everyone. They will need to manage these teams in a great way. You need to make sure everyone's, especially in a heavily regulated industry, you need to make sure everyone's training, everyone's compliant on providing their data correctly. And I think, obviously, when you're doing that for 3 people, it's one thing, and when you're doing it for 3,000, it's another. So there's definitely going to be a lot more onus on the administrators in on the clinical trials to have a stronger grip on the actual what's going on, and not letting anything through, because there's going to be, instead of maybe hundreds of millions, there's going to be billions at stake, and the lives of people as well in some circumstances. If suddenly the trial has to get stopped, someone might be halfway through their treatment and then they won't be able to finish the course, which is obviously, it's quite serious when you put it down to the patients rather than as a business.
What do you feel about yourself? So you won the gold award for the clinical trial administrator of the year internationally. What would you say is the one thing that separated you from anyone else who could have got that award? Whether you put that down to a skill or the way you approach your work, what would you say is the one thing that got you that award? That the reason why you won the award.
Oh, I don't know. It's not really for me to say. I'm not sure what the competition was like, because we were also private. I mean, one definite advantage I probably had was the fact that I'm not a science student. I was a language student at university.
Okay.
So then I was obviously very experienced in writing essays, which was one part of it, and then giving presentations, because that's a lot more focused on, because we weren't in labs and we weren't. Maybe I lacked a bit of the scientific knowledge, but having worked in the industry for 2.5 years, I've gained enough of that as well, so I've built it up.
Yeah.
Whereas maybe perhaps in vice versa, if you went from a scientific background into a scientific industry, maybe you don't have as much time to develop your other skills as much. I'm not sure what else. I mean, the fact that I'd been in it the year before, I was a bit more relaxed perhaps than everyone else.
Of course, yeah.
That I had I knew what was coming. I mean, the situations were different, but I was more or less confident in what I could do. And being a native English speaker also helps when you're competing against some people from around the world and they have to do it in English as well.
Yeah.
And obviously I get a bit of luck in that aspect, that we're English and we get that benefit around the world. And I'm not sure what else really. I mean, maybe I had a good day on the presentation day. I was able to smile and relax and just do my best, and I didn't mess it up, basically.
No, that's a perfectly great answer. And I think there's a real key message to a lot of the things that you're saying, is that just don't turn down these opportunities. Say yes to them. And then go away, do the work, and work out how you can do them. And that sounds like that's been a real key part of your career. Would you say that's right?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's without doubt. Yeah.
Excellent. All right then, James. Well, guess what? We're now going to go into our quickfire round, where this is how I describe it. If you watch Friends and you remember Phoebe's game where she used to ask quick questions to get the truth out of people,
right.
Essentially we can do that. Don't worry, I'm not trying to get any, I don't need to get any truth out of anyone. But anyway, let's go into our quick fire round. Are you ready?
Yep, I'm ready.
Cool, fantastic. Here we go. All right, so question 1. What is your favorite movie?
The Godfather.
Any particular reason?
It's a classic, isn't it? Well, I was going to say all 3, but mainly the first 2, just masterpieces in every aspect of it. With the story and the acting and the cinematography, just brilliant.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Your favourite holiday so far?
So far, this is where they're not quickfire. Sorry, I like city breaks. So any historic cities like Berlin, Rome, Lisbon, ones where you can just walk around and just feel a great atmosphere and people and amazing food. That's the type of breaks I like.
Yeah. Plus, you live in Madrid, so you get the city break that many people want. I love city breaks too. I'm a big fan of Rome, and I live near London, so most definitely. Yeah. What's been the most influential book in your career?
Not really one for self-help books or those type of books that make you better. So I'd say something like,
it can be anything you like.
Inverting the Pyramid by Jonathan Wilson.
I haven't read that. Could you just give us a quick?
It's a, I mean, it sounds a bit nerdy, but it's a history of football tactics from the beginning. So it goes into really good detail. So I think that definitely, like, sort of just reading about strategy all day definitely gets you into a critical thinking mindset. It definitely helps you, I think, from a
Brilliant.
subconscious level, as well as just being interesting.
And what was it called again? Sorry, what was the title?
Inverting the pyramid, because
Right.
it's based on, it used to be the pyramid was the very original formation of like a 4-3-2-1. Well,
Yeah.
the other way around, and then now it's gone the other way around, essentially.
And sorry, who was the author? Sorry.
Jonathan Wilson.
Perfect. Okay, thanks very much. What is your favourite song?
That changes daily, if I'm honest. I mean,
Yeah, so does mine as well, especially with Spotify and things like that.
exactly. Yeah. I don't think I can name one. I mean, the one I've been listening to a lot recently on repeat is "Where Have You Been" by the Manchester Orchestra,
Okay.
who are like an American band.
Yeah.
Although they do sound like they're from Manchester classical music, but they're not.
I'll have to check them out. Definitely have to check them out. And what's your favourite hobby to do outside of work?
Already touched on it before, but playing football is my favourite thing, definitely. Also love to cook and to eat as well. Obviously, that they kind of go together, but I'd say they're my favourite things to do.
Yeah, that sounds great. And any particular football club you're a fan of?
Everton.
Everton. Okay.
Never a fan, yeah.
Is that where you lived in England before, or?
Yeah, I'm from Merseyside originally, so
Okay.
in the Wirral, so it's not far. My dad's born in Liverpool, so I took it from him, really.
Cool. Fantastic. Okay, well, that pretty much brings us to the end of our interview. Thank you so much for being a guest, James. You've given us some fantastic advice, and no doubt anyone watching will really appreciate what you've had to say today. I just want to ask you one more question. Again, for any clinical trial administrators who are watching this, James, what is your the final piece of advice you have for other clinical trial administrators out there?
I would say turn up on time. Relax, enjoy what you're doing, and just do it to your best of your ability. Because if you don't enjoy it, then what's the point, really? You spend a lot of your time in your work, don't you? Like working, sleeping takes up probably more than half your time of your life. So if you're not enjoying your work, then I think you just need to take another attitude and just not moan about it and just try and do your best to enjoy it.
Brilliant. Listen, James, that's been absolutely wonderful having you a guest today. Thank you so much for coming on the show. Again, for anyone watching, looking forward to bringing you the next show of Inspiring Careers, and we'll see you again soon. Thank you very much. Cheers, James.
Thank you, Dan.